So growing up, Christmas was my favorite holiday, and I know it's a lot of people's favorite holiday, but everyone likes it for its own reasons. And for me, it's more the nostalgic feeling I get from all the memories I've had with my family and friends. And what leads to these nostalgic feelings that I get is really the smell of a real Christmas tree when I get it into my house. That real Christmas tree smell reminds me of that Hot Wheels set I got when I was 7 years old that I have no idea where it is today. But the thought of it, that I got that, the memories I have playing with that and my sister and my mom and dad is really what leads me on to this. And all of that just came from one smell of a real Christmas tree. And it really irks me today that these real Christmas trees are on the decline due to artificial ones. So today I'm going to give you the history of Christmas trees, and in hopes why they're beneficial to artificial ones, in hopes to convince you guys to buy a real Christmas tree rather than an artificial one this holiday season. So to start off with the history of a Christmas tree, we go back thousands of years to Scandinavians. So these Scandinavians worshipped Christmas trees as the son of God's plant because it's one of the only plants that stays green the whole entire year. Through the hardest season, winter, and the snow, it's still shining green, and people looked at it like, this is amazing. We can't even be happy during winter that's this harsh. So they cut these trees down and hung them up inside their houses in hopes to keep away witches, ghouls, and illnesses. So that lasted till the 16th century, and the German Christians, when Christianity began saw that what they were doing with evergreens, and they started to bring it into Christianity, and that is where like real Christmas trees come in. They made like Christmas pyramids, they would call them, which were made out of trees, which started the the tradition of Christmas trees, and that's where we got like within the next 20 years, right there in the early 16th century with German Christians. That's where we get like Santa Claus putting presents under the tree and all that jazz. But really, this didn't hit America until the 19th century when German settlers came to America. So in the 19th century, 1833, these German settlers set it up, and all the American or English settlers, were like, that's weird, what are they doing? They're hanging up trees. We already live around forests. But excuse me. Within the next 50 years, it became quite popular. And then in the 1920s, when our economy started to boom, we really, really pulled in this culture to celebrate Christmas with Christmas trees. And that's where we begin to start the commercialism of Christmas. So these, like in the 1920s, when our economy's going well, the commercialism of Christmas really goes. And the Great Depression happens, and Christmas isn't as celebrated, but you still see Christmas trees and all that. And then in the 50s to now, that's when the commercialism really started. Toys, it's all about presents, all that. It's not as much about the family times and memories you have with your family. So all those facts were brought by History.com. I forgot to cite that. Which leads me on. Christmas has a long past, or Christmas trees have a long past, but why are they beneficial today? What brings them to be beneficial today? So, according to brainstats.com, on average, it takes a Christmas tree 7 to 10 years to grow. So trees that are getting bought right now were planted 10 years ago by Christmas tree farmers. And in those 10 years, it's leading to the oxygen level in Earth. They're all helping the oxygen level. There's 350 million trees. Also brought, Statbring also says there's 350 million trees planted right now. So within the next 10 years, they'll get cut down, but more will be planted and replaced. This year will actually be the hardest year to get a real Christmas tree because 10 years ago is when the economy started to crash, so there's less real Christmas trees this year rather than any other year. So the oxygen level is one benefit, but another one is also the aroma that you get to bring into your house. It's proven by the National Christmas Tree Association, didn't even know that was a thing, the NCTA, that it makes a person 23% happier once they buy a tree that is that expensive. Because Christmas trees, a nice Christmas tree is around like $240-ish, and you bring that into your house for only about a month. But the feeling that you get of that fresh pine smell, and you're taking care of it, you're watering it, it just brings a person that much more happier around the holiday season. So there's that. And then on average, well, not on average, but if you guys have ever been to a Christmas tree lot, most of the time it's foundations, like local foundations, like the youth centers run it and stuff like that. 90% of the proceeds often go to the, like I did mine, I live in Los Al, there's the Los Al Christmas tree lots run by the youth center. There's 90% of that goes back to the youth center and 10% goes back to the farmers. So you're supporting your community, you're supporting the future of your community, and you're supporting people in need by doing so. So that's another benefit. And then if you were to buy an artificial tree, you're not really supporting the economy, the American economy as much, because 80% of artificial Christmas trees are made in China by outside vendors. So if you're buying an artificial Christmas tree, you're not necessarily supporting the American economy as much as you were to buy a real one. Plus, if you buy a real one, you're supporting the economy every single year you come through. And then you don't have to be Christian or Catholic to celebrate like with a Christmas tree. This is going to sound very unpolitically incorrect, but we had my babysitter. Her name was Kristen Maniac. She danced in the dance studio my sister did. She was my babysitter, but her family was Jewish, and they would buy Christmas trees every year, and they would call it their Jewish bush. And they would celebrate it. They would celebrate it with white, light blue, and blue lights around it. And just because of the smell and the joy that it brings people, they would celebrate that with with their like Jewish religion. So it doesn't have to be a Christmas tree. Essentially, it's just a tree that will bring you joy and happiness. So. To look back, I talked about the history of a tree, what the benefits are, how it makes you happier, and the fact that you don't even have to be Christian or Catholic to celebrate with the Christmas tree. So, in conclusion, after it's all said and done, a Christmas tree is going to bring you joy and happiness. And that's essentially what you're looking for in the holiday season. You're not trying to look at all the bad things that are actually happening, because they're actually a lot, like the commercialism, and like long lines at Target and Walmart. It is a symbol for the holiday season, and I hope you guys can find in your heart to buy a real Christmas tree this year, now knowing the benefits and the history of Christmas trees. Thank you.
All right, Naomi, what did you think?
The story in the beginning really got my attention because I get that nostalgia from when I was a kid. The preview was great, and you were clear and to the point. You seem to know the topic very well, and thank you for citing your sources. You transitioned between your different points really well. And when you got nervous, you looked at your paper, and then your gestures were appropriate for what you're talking about.
All right, the visualization you have at the beginning, I think, is a good way to start. It kind of connects us with the subject. There's an emotional component to what you're talking about there. That works well. The historical information is okay. You give the source citation kind of after you've done that. That felt a little bit awkward. And I think you need to, specify particular pieces of information as you go along as well. Maybe a little bit deeper than just going to the one source. The historical information is good background. It kind of does give us a sense of why this there's a value argument being made here in addition to something that's a little bit more practical, and that kind of connects the value argument a bit. There are times when it sounds a little more informative than persuasive, although I do think you ultimately do have a persuasive argument that you're making here. When you start talking about the benefits of Christmas trees, it felt a little more random. I think you needed to develop that and maybe organize that so that we know that that's coming and that it's not like it's a casual site, oh, and it does this kind of thing and it does this kind of thing. It's really something that's planned as opposed to something that feels, like it's dropped in. Part of that might be problematic because you do have to go to your notes occasionally, and that draws attention to the fact that it's something else is coming up. I did appreciate your making sure that we could see your face while you were speaking. I thought that extra effort was worthwhile. You want to be careful about the swaying. Sometimes you are shifting your weight up off of your foot. It almost looks like you're coming up off of the one foot and then dropping back down on it. So that's a little bit of an awkward habit that you have. That's the only place I see any anxiety coming out. It sounds like maybe you got a little bit of a cold, so I understand sometimes why those things might be affected that way. All right, thank you.